The Exorcist Files, one of my favorite podcasts. Now, you have a second season and you put a crowdfund out there, and this Kickstarter, you blew past like 3 times over what your goal was. Why do you think so many people responded to season 2 of The Exorcist Files?
Well, I'm biased because I made season 1, and I thought Father and I definitely thought it would be successful. We were blown away, though. We didn't expect this kind of just reaction to it. But turns out spiritual warfare, despite how creepy it is a popular topic. And I've really been surprised. I mean, you get all these Kickstarter is such a cool platform, and it exposes your project to a whole new audience. And that's kind of the reason we wanted to go with it. When we went independent, we obviously, it's a big budget to make this show. So we wanted to do a Kickstarter to help make it happen. And it's a really cool platform. It brings in all sorts of new fans, et cetera. So it's a lot of work, but we're so grateful. It's been such a fun ride. And it's not over yet. We got, about 2 weeks left to go. And I'm really excited. It's sitting at a really good number for us. So we're really grateful. Fans, we're so great. We didn't think it was going to be like this. It's a really loyal fan base.
So, all right, for those who don't know, obviously, The Exorcist Files, you get an idea based on the name of what is going on in this show. But take us through, for those who didn't hear season 1, and now they're going to go do that, what exactly the show centers on, the structure of the show. Give us the background.
So The Exorcist Files is we'll call it a docuseries, and a docuseries podcast that takes real case files from a Catholic priest and exorcist, Father Carlos Martins, and they are dramatized into 3D binaural sound. And it's absolutely a trip. I mean, I didn't know that you could do this even with sound. And it's edgy, it's serious. There's also a lot of humor, as you know, you've listened to it. I think it's a really unique blend. It's a really proprietary blend. We like to say it's the only show that you can get catechesis, spiritual teaching, and solid biblical knowledge, terrifying anecdotes from the actual case files of an exorcist, and a really good number of dad jokes. So the 3 really help balance each other out. But basically, each episode is a case or part of a case that happened. And obviously the names, places, and details are changed, but we use phenomenal actors. They actually are acting out these scenes. And it's designed to give people a sense of realism of why you want to avoid this stuff in the first place, but also to use storytelling to bring messages of hope and truth. Because, spoiler alert, right? With a lot of these folks, they end up getting liberated, right? And that's Father's job, is to help set people free. So even if you think it's bonkers, even if you think this is strange, we bring on like psychiatrists, we bring on neuroscientists, like we bring on a lot of smart people who will also share their own anecdotes and testimonies. And I think even if you think in the end it's not, demons or whatever, I still think you're going to walk away going, there is pretty compelling evidence for something happening. And it's cool to hear a good story. Also, just if you enjoy a good story, just don't do it right before bed. That's my biggest advice.
I wonder if you have any listeners who do listen right before bed. But, look, this is a topic that freaks a lot of people out. As listeners, you put yourself in a position of being the person helping guide people along, bringing these stories together. Obviously, you take the approach you take. You are a believer. You are a Christian as an individual. What was it like getting into this? Was there any part of you where you were kind of like, you know what, maybe I don't want to dive into a project that's so hyper-focused on this, where you freaked out at all? Just take me through your own mental standing as you entered into this.
I probably should have been more freaked out, but also it's like, if you are a believer and you read the scriptures, it's like you're not supposed to fear the demonic. You're supposed to be aware of it. Father always likes to make this comparison to, there are kitchen knives and they're sharp and they could cut you, but you don't lay awake at night thinking like, what if I hurt myself in the kitchen? It's a threat that you respect, but you don't need to dwell unnecessarily on it. And, for Father in particular, he wanted to do this because he said, look, a lot of people may not want to sit and listen to him lecture, but they do enjoy a good story. And a lot of these cases just have just fascinating backstory. I mean, you've got levitations, you've got people turning into wolves, you've got stuff that I would say, I understand how crazy this sounds. We had some weird stuff happen while making it, which anyone can go on. If you look up at the making of any like of the big exorcism movies, from The Exorcist or all the way up to Emily Rose, you'll hear anecdotes. And I think one of the like hidden secrets that's not so hidden is if you talk to anyone who works in this space, whether it's like self-fulfilling prophecy or proof of what we're doing, You talk to enough people, like weird stuff happens. Like we had the power go out the second we started recording on one of the days. We've had recordings disappear. There's a lot of like, weird stuff, right? And so I was not afraid per se, but I do take it seriously. And I will say that there's an old anecdote about Jack Nicholson warning Heath Ledger about getting into the Joker part. And I don't know how true this is, but you talk to a lot of my friends are actors, and when they go deep into a character and stuff, right? There's even in a secular just going after a character, there's guardrails and things you put up emotionally. And so we actually, before we do this, we take a lot of precautions. We do a lot of prayer. Some people actually don't want to perform. We actually have a lot of talent, prospective talent, request not to do certain scenes because they're just not comfortable. So, and those are the moments where you go, am I missing something? I had a gentleman, really amazing actor, say I can't play an upcoming part because it triggers something inside me. And I thought, oh, it's cool to see how much respect people have for this.
Yeah, that's interesting too, having an awareness, right? Because when you don't have an awareness of what you're getting into, for a lot of people, they're going to listen to this show and they might not believe it's true. They might think, like you were saying, it's bonkers, but they're interested. I mean, if you look out at Hollywood, and you know this better than anyone, how many movies every October come out and they surround the demonic? They come out because people will go and see them because there's a natural intrigue about these stories, regardless of where people fall on the theological line, right? They want to kind of watch it. They want to be freaked out, but there's something deeper than that. And when you look at the polling on this, a lot of people believe it's real, right? I believe it's real. You believe it's real. And we need to be very careful with that. So it's interesting to hear that there are actors who actually come into it with that caution. Let me ask you this. What for you has been, and maybe it's hard to choose because I know you guys pick the best case files when you do the show. What has been the most slam dunk story for you? The one where you were like, okay, I can't think of another explanation outside of the spiritual realm for this particular thing to be happening.
Well, you know what they say, exorcism cases, they're like your children. You love them all. But do you have a favorite?
I don't know if anybody actually says that.
Yeah, actually, sure. No one says that. No one says that. But I personally had the most fun recording the Ouija board episode, and it's one of the I mean, all the stories are bonkers, and I have a weird situation now where people will tell me what they're like, Ryan, I have to tell you this crazy story for your show, and they'll tell me, and they notice I don't react like everyone, and I have to. You have to understand. I have heard now stuff that I'm so numb to some of the weird stuff, like because we interview lots of exorcists, so. The Ouija board episode is a really fascinating one. The backstories, and what also made that story particularly harrowing is that I had several people, including a good friend of mine, email me similar accounts of what happened in that. Also, last year when that came out, there were the 2 stories about people hospitalized in Colombia after playing with the Ouija board. And so I just still, that case has the things you're like, it just sounds like you made up in a horror movie. It defies credulity. You wonder what could have happened there. So also it was fun to record though, because it involves 5 or 6 guys, and it was a lot of close friends and I just one night being best friends playing the role. It's cool when you get to play a role that is like actually true. So it was fun to do that, but just a crazy case. And the history of the Ouija board we include in that episode is absolutely astounding. I'll tell you too, we obviously won't spoil because for those wondering about season 2 and if the cases are going to be as weird or edgy, they don't disappoint from what I've seen so far. So I was like, Father, you're holding out. These are some very interesting ones. But I had a really beautiful moment. We were recording with a guest exorcist who was contributing a case of a just radically bizarre but inspiring, moving story. And at one point during the recording, he stopped and was bawling, maybe not bawling, but like tearing up. And he said, would you all please give me a moment here? And he was collecting himself. And it was so beautiful because he was just quietly praising God that this person had been rescued. And he said, look, when you're an exorcist, right, you can pray for the person, you can lead them through the rites, you can do everything you can do, but you can't be there all the time. And if the person is not willing to play ball with God's rules in this case, then there's only so much you can do. And he was close to losing her. And it showed me the ownership and the thought and care that goes into, being an exorcist and the concern for the victim. And it was a beautiful moment and touching. And it was one of those kind of like holy moments where you stop for a minute and you realize if anyone asks me why I believe it, That's one of those moments when you see this man is tearing up. He's given his life to religious life, and he's just so thankful that God rescued this person from the clutches of the enemy. And it was beautiful. As a producer, I really wish I had it on camera.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's interesting, right? It's sort of like when you talk from a Christian perspective, a lot of Christians will talk about the evidence for faith. And, I often find conversion stories to be some of the best evidence. And of course, because somebody's life changing so radically, in this instance, seeing somebody so affected by the work that they're doing, you mentioned a couple of interesting things there. The history of the Ouija board, I won't spoil it either, but I've worked on some similar projects, and that for me was one of the most eye-opening histories to learn it and understand it and see what was going on behind it and where it came from and some of the other bizarre details. I'd encourage people to go listen to your episode on that, because it's pretty remarkable in the most negative of senses, but it speaks to the credence of a lot of these experiences that people do have after using the Ouija board, which again you cover in the series. How did you sort of walk the line between not overstepping and not overdoing it, while at the same time bringing entertainment into it so people are captivated by the stories? Because that's a tough thing to do on these sorts of stories.
For sure. And it takes a minute. You know how I'm sure some of your favorite shows, episode 1, 2, and 3, sometimes the first season is a little tough, right? It takes a minute to find your rhythm, et cetera. We were really blessed. I mean, we had an amazing team. Our producer of season 1, Chandler, was phenomenal and did amazing work on that, and really helped kind of pioneer that sound. But it took the short answer is it took a minute to get there. But I think part of why it's been, we wanted to have particular roles, which is father. Obviously, I mean, you ask yourself, what's his motivation for doing this, right? He was reluctant to do it. He doesn't want to celebrate. He's not running into the spotlight. It took a long time to convince him to do this, right? Secondly, I play the skeptic on the show because even though I subscribe to a worldview that accounts for the existence of spirits, which I want to also say that anyone skeptical too, right? Just most of history and most cultures on earth have a paradigm for evil spirits. So if you believe in ghosts and evil spirits, you're not in the minority at all. But I found that playing the skeptic, because I want to know, I don't just accept everything at face value. There is a lot of nonsense in this space, but the fact that we are willing to play, and a great example of this, right? One of the signs of a genuine possession is superhuman strength, right? We have a whole section in one of the episodes on what I believe is called, I think it was called insanity strength. I may be mixing up the term, but the phenomena where during an adrenaline rush, it displays enormous amounts of strength and feats of strength. And that is definitely a thing. But again, those are typically found in life or death situations. Hard to say that's what's happening in someone who's coming just in and out of a various consciousness during an exorcism. So we play, no pun intended, devil's advocate. And we find that I think that is an element that's worked really well in our favor. And then the humor. Good horror and humor, I'm learning as I grow as a storyteller, are really intertwined. And you can have so much tension, and then you have to have a little bit of comedic relief to get there. And so I think that blend is what made it really successful, is that, hey, this is what Father's teaching. Here's a questioning to it to show you that we hear what you're going to... Because if someone tells you they saw someone turn into a wolf, your reaction should be, where's the tape?
Yeah,
right?
prove it. I mean, I want you to prove to me. And I feel like that should be our posture, regardless of whether you're a Christian or not, that we don't believe every single thing people are saying. Prove it. Give me the details that make me want to believe that, right?
That's right. And there's no tapes. And I know a lot of people say, show me the tapes. And one, as I say often, is like, one, it's not allowed. And they say, why not? Well, one, your curiosity is not the primary consideration when making or when performing an exorcism, right? Also, it's like, imagine, this is therapy on steroids. You can only imagine and again, genuine Father. One thing I really appreciate about Father is he will say that genuine cases of what we're talking about, these are extreme cases, right? These are it takes so much to get an exorcism. So he will be the first to say most cases are not, they're mental health issues. But, imagine someone who happens to be at that level where they're deemed it's time to get a exorcism. Imagine how they would behave in that. And imagine what you would do in just a normal therapy. Would you want a normal therapy session broadcast to the world? Right. And so it's funny, but I'd like to flip that around and say, I'm sorry that we're not willing to, videotape this to satisfy the curiosities of this. Right. But For me, again, I've never seen. I want to be clear. I've never seen any of the gravity-defying stuff, et cetera, that these other exorcists have talked about. But you talk to 5 or 6 people who all look at you, and what's interesting is they don't go, "Have you seen this?" They stop and they go, "Yeah." Once it's like, what? It's a parlor trick. Their dismissiveness of it, I find to be very convincing and compelling.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's all the work you do on this series is all incredible. And you now obviously you have season 2 coming. People have been supporting it through this Kickstarter. Where do you want to send people right now? If people are like, hey, I want to hear the show, season 1, or I want to support season 2 in some way, where can they go to do that?
exorcistfiles.tv, that has the links to the show and to support our Kickstarter. We love your support on the Kickstarter. There's some really cool rewards and digital experiences. For those who don't know how Kickstarter works, it's a crowdfunding platform. It's really cool. People just get on to support projects that they love. I mean, we're doing great. Brandon Sanderson, I think, raised $43 million on it a couple years ago. So on a scale of 1 to Sanderson, we're not as big as him, but we're doing great. And it's really cool to see a lot of work pay off in that. But it's fun to see your fans rally and meet a goal. And then you offer them rewards to say thank you for various levels there. So we've got some cool stuff on there. But yeah, they can go to exorcistfiles.tv and they can click there. The link's very obvious to find it. And yeah, I hope season 2, fingers crossed, will be out in a couple months. We're actually recording right now, and it is the most bizarre thing to watch someone over Zoom do a faux manifestation. So it's a very, those are the moments when you look and you go, is this my life right now? It is for now.
It is for now, for at least the next couple of months. Yeah, it's your life.
It is for now, but it's a serious subject, and people, Father Martin's always wants people to know that he's doing this because he just wants to wake people up, regardless of whether you're Christian, atheist, Jedi, whatever. He just wants you to know that, hey, evil's real. And at the very least, this should be a motivation to put the Ouija board away and stick to chutes and ladders.
On that note, I appreciate you joining us today, taking us through this. Good luck on the continued fundraising there through the Kickstarter. And we're looking forward to season 2. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Billy.